Welcome back. He's one of the world's best-selling authors. It's creeping up to 300 million books sold internationally. He's also the only writer to have ever achieved #1 on the fiction charts 19 times, short stories and non-fiction. It's a level of success that's hard to comprehend for us mere mortals, but not for Jeffrey Archer. My next guest, who has just released his latest book, Next in Line. It's a brilliant thriller, and we'll get onto that shortly. But first, Lord Jeffrey Archer, thank you so much for joining me. It's a real pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Erin. I didn't realise I was approaching immortality, but I confess at the age of 82, I'm willing to believe it.
I'm sure you've got another 20 years before you find out for sure,
Yes,
hopefully anyways. Now, when did you realise that you were able to write things that lots and lots of people wanted to read and were willing to pay for?
The big breakthrough came when I wrote Cain and Abel, and that's over 40 years ago. It went to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list and sold over 1 million in the first month. That really did make a whole difference to my life. And I've been very privileged, because that was 40 years ago, I've been very privileged for that to have been continued.
Yeah, that's a fairly good indicator for you. Can you take me through, and I'm so fascinated by this, the process of writing a novel? Do you brainstorm? Do you map it all out? Do you just start writing and see where it takes you? What's your process?
I'm very disciplined. I rise at 5:30 in the morning and start working at 6. I do 6 to 8, 10 to 12, 2 to 4, 6 to 8. Back in bed by 10. The first draft will be 50 days, about 300 hours. And what you have in front of you is the 14th draft of Next in Line. And it's about 1,000 hours that has taken. I wish it got easier, but even in old age, I'm still doing 14 drafts of every book.
I've achieved so much less than you, and I can't believe I'm even about to compare myself in any way, but something that I've always, the attitude I've had with my work is that what I did at the start that got me success initially, I always do to this day. Even if I could maybe do a little bit less or not do as much prep, I will still do exactly the same amount excessively, because that was the key to my success in the early days. Is it an aspect of that in it, that you can't become complacent?
I think that's true for most people, Erin. I think that the truth is we stick with what works and what we feel good with. So any young writer listening to this, don't listen to me. Do what suits you. I am an owl. I am a lark. My wife is an owl. I work in the morning. She likes working in the evening. So do what suits you. And if it works, stick to it.
I love that. Do you read for pleasure at all?
I do when I'm not writing. I find it very difficult to read when I'm actually head down working. Yes, I read a great deal for pleasure. I read a book every week. So when I'm not in a writing phase, I'm reading all the time. And I would say, well, I've captured you, Erin, and all those Australian people that are listening. My favourite author is Stefan Zweig. Now, many of you may not have heard of him, because I didn't discover him until I was 60 years old. But he is the man I want to be when I grow up. I want to be Stefan Zweig.
I'm going to have to look him up now. That is quite a rap.
A wonderful writer.
Does he know how you feel about him?
I'm afraid he is a very interesting case. He was born in Austria at the time of Hitler. He escaped to America, where sadly he thought Hitler was going to win, so he committed suicide. We only have 2 novels, amazing set of non-fiction. I mean, I think arguably, so he died just when I was a child of no age, but we lost one of the greatest authors ever.
Oh, that's incredible. I'll have to look him up and have a read. That's amazing. To a different topic slightly, you're a former parliamentarian. New UK Prime Minister Liz Truss is doing it tough, and that's putting it politely. Do you sympathise with her? What are your thoughts on the current political situation?
she's in a terrible situation, and I don't know what's going to happen this week, and it will happen this week. We've just lost our Chancellor of the Exchequer, who's a close and dear friend. I spoke to him this morning. Liz Truss is in real trouble. But we've had 3 prime ministers in 3 years. I don't think it will necessarily be wise to have 4 prime ministers in 4 years. We're in turmoil over here at the moment, and it's not looking particularly bright this Sunday morning.
No. How was he, the ex-Chancellor? Was he? Did he see it coming?
No. I didn't. She hit the ground running, and I'm afraid she tripped up almost on the first step. And the press have been ruthless. Her own members have been ruthless. And frankly, I'd be surprised if she was Prime Minister at Christmas.
Yeah, wow. Okay, now on to something far more fascinating and interesting, and that's your newest novel, Next in Line, featuring Princess Diana, the People's Princess, and her royal protection. William Warwick, who your readers know well as well. There's 2 storylines running that are parallel. It's been described as unput-downable. Do you read reviews, and do you care what people think and write about your work?
Well, they've been very generous for so many years now that, yes, I confess I do read them. And of course, I was worried with Next in Line because it does feature on Princess Diana. And having worked with her for so many years in her charity work and then become a friend, it was awkward for me 25 years later, actually writing about her. So it's been a relief, Erin, to have a letter from 2 members of the royal family saying how much they enjoyed the book. So that worry is now out of my way, and I naturally hope the Australian people will enjoy it as well.
Oh, I have absolutely no doubt at all. The royal family, speaking of, they're never short of books in that space. I understand that you're a little bit worried about the book that Harry is releasing. I just wanted to ask your thoughts on why.
You're quite right. I mean, that's a tricky situation. If you pay $20 million, Erin, to buy a book, you do not want, I repeat, you do not want old stuff hashed up that we've all read in the national papers. They will be looking for exclusives. They will be looking for sensation. That's a lot of money, 20 million. And if they don't get it, they'll be very cross. So I suspect the book is finished in theory. I suspect it is fairly sensational. Whether it ever hits the book stand is another question.
Oh, it's a very interesting point. I would have done it for half as much, Lord Archer.
Oh, that's very generous of you. That's very generous of you.
I don't think my sources are as impeccable. Lord Jeffrey Archer, it's been such a pleasure having you on. I'm such a big fan, as are so many other people in Australia. Thank you so much for your generosity and your time.
I'm delighted to come on, and can I end by saying how much we're looking forward to having the Australian cricket team come to England next year. That is if you still have a cricket team by this time.
Barry in the opening T20s.
Just played. What?
I know. It was very impressive, but you wait for the World Cup, my friend. We were just holding back. Thank you so much. You take care.
You did a very good demonstration of holding back.
We're good at that. Let me tell you, it's a real strength. Thank you so much, sir.